was having a conversation with a lady earlier in the week and at a funeral, and she was telling me about a conversation that she was having with someone that was going through something. And she said that after she got through talking to him, that God spoke to her. And I was like, oh man, I love it when I feel God like tugging at my heart. She said, no, a voice out of heaven came down like an audible voice. And I was like, yes, Lord. And we were talking. I was like, okay, yeah, this is all right. Okay, this is weird. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, right off the bat, I was like, I've never really heard the audible voice. But I'm not saying it can't happen. But anyway, as she was telling me this story, an unaudible voice came to me from the Lord, and literally in the 1.5 minutes of her telling me this story, the Lord gave me the whole entire sermon for today. In that 1.5 minutes, the whole entire sermon for the day, in 1.5 minutes. And I was like, okay, well, wow, okay, well, I guess there's something I shouldn't have doubted you, Lord. But then on my way home, the Lord told me that I wasn't allowed to do any research. I had to take the sermon He gave me in my head, that I could not go and open up the Bible to find the chapter or the verses or any of this stuff. I mean, nothing. I couldn't do anything. I had to just go with whatever He gave me. So the stories are from the Old Testament. So I made a picture, and it's got the stories I'm going to tell today come from one of those books. Well, several of those books. But they're all from the Old Testament, so I'm covered. So I'm going to let you know. I think I misheard the Lord now that I look back on it. Y'all, here's the thing. When people become saved, when people come into a relationship with Jesus Christ, a lot of people are under this misunderstanding, and even people that don't know Christ are under this misunderstanding that once that happens, that everything's just perfect. Everything's going to be good from then on. I accept the Lord as my Savior, and now life is great. The checks will start coming in the mail. No more health issues. I'll be like Methuselah. I'll live to be 960-something years old. Life is great. No more problems. No issues whatsoever. Everything is dandy. But the truth of the matter is, that is not the truth at all. So I'm going to tell you 4 stories. Awful stories. From the Bible. Somewhere in the Old Testament. And these are 100% true. I will tell you nothing today that is false. Everything I tell you today will be the truth. 100% true. So we are going to start with a story. There was this young guy in the Bible somewhere. We'll say Genesis. His brothers didn't like him because he was sort of a little punk. He was a little spoiled punk. So they tried to get rid of him. And he got thrown into a pit. Then he got thrown into slavery. And then he became a servant. And he went to work for this dude. And the dude's wife was like really into him because he was young and he worked out a lot. And he looked really good. And she tried to like seduce him. And he was like, no. And he tried to run away from her. So she like tried to grab his clothes, rip her clothes, and then told everybody that he tried to force himself on her, tried to rape her, and he was thrown in prison. So yeah, that's his life. It didn't work out too good for him. Anyway, somewhere else in the Bible, we're going to say maybe Exodus, there was this group of people, and man, everything was fine. Everything was good. They were doing their thing. Everything was good. And then one day somebody came along and said, look, we need to get out of here. We need to leave. We need to get away from this place. I'm going to deliver you to a place where everything's going to be perfect. And they're like, man, that sounds good. They said, well, be ready. So when the time was right, they took off and they were going. But then the head of the country was like, yeah, we're not going to have this. So he goes and gets like his whole entire army. And he's like, yeah, we're going to get those people. We're going to kill them for trying this. But the guy that delivered them takes them. And when they're almost getting to safety, they turn the corner, and there is a huge raging sea in front of them. That's where he led them to. Yeah, none of them could swim. They didn't have swimming lessons back then. Nobody could swim. So that's what he did. That's where he took them to. Yeah. Appreciate that. Worked out great. Then there, a little bit later, there's a book, and it was either in David or Daniel or Danton, one of the books in the Old Testament. Starts with a D. They was these young boys, and they were good-looking young guys. I mean, they were doing good, and they followed the Lord and everything. They got themselves in a little trouble because they wouldn't do what the ruler said to do. So they got thrown into a pit of fire. And y'all, let me tell you what, they had people, they had co-workers at work praying for them. Man, they've gotten all that trouble. I'm going to pray they'll be delivered. You think they will? No, they ain't going to be, but we're going to pray anyway. We're not going to believe that they're going to, but we're going to pray. Co-workers, family, mamas, grandmamas, people at their temple, at synagogue, praying for them. Well, didn't do them a lot of good. All their faithfulness. And what do you see him doing? Flying into the fire. Yep. Well, he had another friend. Those three boys had this other friend. He's a little bit older guy. His pit don't have any fire. But there's a story in the Bible of a man who he prays to God. He's not supposed to. But hey, if you pray to God, he's going to work everything out. Everything's going to be good. So he's like, you know what, I'm not worried. He prays. Yeah, there he goes. Got thrown into a pit. Look at that. Man, they look hungry. And he looks like he's been working out, though. He's a little bit younger looking at that picture. He's praying. Well, dude, you got lions around you, and they're fixing to eat you. So, all of these stories are true. All of these people with all this great faith, all this belief in doing the right thing, following God, doing everything right. And everything I've told you is true. That's what happened. Things don't always work out. Things don't always go your way. But people know Mark is the pastor that's happy and jolly. Don't want to leave on a sad note. I'm going to give you 4 stories that are a little more encouraging. 4 stories are a little more encouraging. I want you to understand everything I just told you is 100% true. Nobody found a lie in anything that I just said. Nobody. There's no lie in anything. You can find it, if you go home today and start at Genesis 1 and go all the way through the last chapter in Malachi, you'll read those stories. Because that's the whole Old Testament. 100% true.
In the book of Daniel?
Huh?
In the book of Daniel?
Or Daniel or David or some name of the D. Yeah. You remember that story, Danton? Yeah, there you go.
It's a mess.
It is a mess. Yeah, that book's a mess. That book's a mess. And we just found out that book's been around a long time. So, I'm gonna end on 4 good stories because I want y'all to leave here today. And then later, me and the Lord are going to have a talk about don't ever do that again, Lord. I want y'all to listen to this. I'm going to give you 4 stories. There's a story in the Bible, y'all. Since we were talking about water, there's a story in the New Testament of Jesus calming seas. Walking on water. There's water stories. Noah's Ark. There's water stories. There's a story in the Bible of where a massive body of water opened up and made a walkway for millions of people to walk through. It's crazy. There's a story somewhere in the Bible. I think it's maybe, I don't know, Genesis, near the beginning, but no, it might have been Exodus. Anyway, massive water opened up, and people just walked right through it and went on to the other side where they were going to a promised land. It's absolutely amazing. And then there's a story in the Bible of this guy that nobody in his family really cared about him much. His brothers didn't. But the amazing thing about this story, listen to this, y'all. This is going to blow your mind. Amazing thing, he went through all kind of bad stuff. All kind of bad stuff. But in the end, he was elevated to second in command. This guy rose from nothing, from being a slave servant in prison, and rose to the very top. Absolutely phenomenal story of overcoming, of conquest. Amazing. And then, there's stories in the Bible about fire. The Holy Spirit coming at Pentecost like tongues of fire. You've got the story of Elijah lighting the wood, fire coming down. That whole Sodom and Gomorrah thing, that's a little scary. I'm not going to go there. But anyway, fire stories. But there's a story in the Bible of some young boys that go into this big old pit of fire. It's burning everything up around, and they just go in there and walk around. Just have them a big old time. Walk around, skipping, howdy doody, get in a line holding hands, doing a ring around the roses, they all fall down. Y'all, it's absolutely phenomenal. The flames don't even hurt them. Don't touch them. Don't even burn them. They come out, they don't even smell like fire. They don't smell like fire. You ever been around a campfire? Or somebody's been around and they come in, you're like, oh my goodness, you smell like burnt wood. Yes. They don't even smell like that. It was like that they came out from getting ready to go out on the town. They smelled nice, looked good. It's unreal. I'll give you one last story and I'm going to end this message. Man, y'all get out of here early. That's why God gave me this message. He was like, you keep them too long, preacher. Keep them too long. There's another story in the Bible about this guy that liked to, he had this, you ever heard, years ago there was this show on TV or this movie they made called The Horse Whisperer. Anybody remember The Horse Whisperer? You like talk to horses. Well, there's a story in the Bible about this guy that can like talk to lions. And like he would go hang out with lions, at least one situation I can remember. And like everybody knew these lions, everybody that ever was around these lions killed. But he would hang out with them. When people would come to check on them, he would like have them in headlocks, giving them noogies, rubbing their belly. They'd be up on their bags, just having a big old time. He'd be opening up their mouth, looking in there. It's absolutely insane. He could do anything he wanted with these lions. Absolutely phenomenal stories in the Bible. All of those stories I told you are 100% true. Now let me ask you a question before we dismiss. I told you 4 horrible stories. Then I told you 4 fun, good stories. And all of it was true. Every bit of it. What do you think is odd about this message?
They're all the same stories.
They're all the same story. You know what that woman said? That God said to her? Don't fear. I'm not through writing your story. How different does history look like? How different does the grace of God look like if the story is stopped in the middle before God puts a period on it? You might come here today and you might be 12, 13 years old and life in school is absolutely awful and you're just thinking, Lord, my life is a mess. And God has told me to tell you, your story's not over. He's not through writing it. You might be 20. You may be 30. You might be 40. You might be 50. You might be 60, 70, 80, 90. Or at 2:45 this morning, I was in a room with a lady that had just turned 100 years old that passed away. And her daughter-in-law said not too long ago, a few weeks ago, she said to me, I'm almost 100. Why in the world doesn't God take me home? And she said, I looked at her and said, Miss Ethel, it's because he's still got something for you to do. Your story's not over. Y'all, that happened 8 or 9 hours before I'm preaching this message. The same voice that was heard earlier in the week, this woman is giving me the same words, and that was confirmation. I don't care how bad things look right now. Your story's not over until God says it's over. I don't care how dire, I don't care if you're like, yeah, preacher, but if you only knew, let me tell you what, I have never, nor do I ever want to be in a pit of hungry lions. I have never, Danton's been that old, not me. I have never been thrown into a pit of fire, even though I did a thing one time. Miss Jen, do you remember when I did that thing? I was going to show y'all a trick here with the flame, and I touched it, and I didn't mean to, and I kept it there too long, and it like caught my finger on. Remember that? Yeah, that hurt. I've never had my whole body on fire. I've never had a chariots and whips after me. I have been in some rough waters. Yeah, I probably had, well, move on from there. Get away from that one. And if somebody would have saw me at 25, they would have said, man, your life's a mess. But God chuckled and said, y'all, I ain't through writing his story. I shared a little bit of that. Well, I shared probably too much of it with Hannah the other day at work. She was like, I've only known you like a preacher. I didn't know that you were messed up at one time. Y'all, if you would, please stand. Some of y'all decided a long time ago that where Satan put that little dot, and my wife, ever since she heard Miss Becky make the comment a year or two ago about they just need to dot it, she likes to use that expression all the time, Miss Becky, dot it. Usually it's when I'm talking and she's wanting me to shut up. She's like, well, you just dot it and Satan put a lot of dots on y'all's lives, and y'all gave him the authority to determine your story. And God is sitting there with this eraser, and he's like, all you got to do is call on me, and I'll erase that dot, and then you'll let me finish your story. This morning, let God finish your story. Don't let Satan finish your story. Don't let Satan put a dot on your story. Because I don't care where you've been, how far away you've been, what kind of trials you've been through, tribulations you've been through. I don't care how many of them were your own doing. My God is a forgiving God, a loving God. He is a God that dots stories when it's time to be dotted. And he will always, always do it to glorify himself and for the best of you. This morning, this altar is open. We're on page 389. Freely, freely. If you feel like that maybe you dotted your story a little too quick, if you feel like that maybe there's another chapter, maybe somebody's ready to write that part 2 version, well, that person is God. This altar is his library. Come, kneel at it, call out to him, and all you have to do is simply say to yourself, to him in your heart, but to him, all you have to do is say, God, I'm not happy with my story being dotted right now. I'm ready for you to get back to writing the rest of it. And then you walk out of here today in the glory of knowing that God is still at work in your life. Freely, freely, the altar is open until no one comes.